Wherever Rabbi Say, this is Yehud 11. The program is 11 at 11, heard every Thursday evening, Leil Shishi, between 11 o'clock and midnight on 620 AM radio. It could also be heard on our hotline 24 and 6. And it's also a video, which you can find on our YouTube channel. Please become a subscriber if you use the internet. 11 at 11. It's Levin, and then skip a space and 11. It's our YouTube channel. It's also archived many times on Hefker Welt. We have a very, very crucial program this evening, a continuation of our program last week of Rosh Chodesh of 5778, the Churban, that is the legacy of the Rabbi Sherer Zechrone Livracha doctrine on how to deal with immorality in America, both politicians and legislation. We've demonstrated clearly this was not the position of Gedolei Yisrael. This was Rabbi Sherer's creation, and unfortunately the Agudah functionaries and now even the next generation of Gedolim are now following this as if it's some sort of dogma, although it's errant, discredited, and mamish a churban for Klal Yisrael in the world. We're going to continue to give you the play-by-play and in-depth information on this subject. In addition to that, we're going to briefly discuss a Brooklyn Supreme Court judge who deals with divorces, Judge Eric Pruss. He's a Prustak. It's a Prusta Maisa that he does. It's Prustam Pashut, that what he's doing may very well be the cause of Ashes Ish and Mamzerus in Klal Yisrael. And we will elaborate on that in Yirtzeh Hashem, time permitting. We didn't get a chance to fully discuss the implications of Chuck U. Schumer's announcement with pride. His wife wasn't there, I don't think, at the announcement. At the homosexual pride parade, the Kfelling Tati and Shver of the lesbian couple, he announced their nuptials, and we want to discuss that a little bit more, the Mida Keneged Mida in this disgrace. Furthermore, we want to discuss briefly the scandal of some sort of an activist, wacko extremist named Jeff Leb, who's worked for various Jewish organizations, and he marched with a rainbow yarmulke in the Gay Pride March, and he's assumedly, it's alleged that he said, I hope Agudas Yisrael doesn't find out. He shouldn't worry about Agudas Yisrael finding out. He should worry about Yehud 11 and the Olim in Lakewood and B'nai Torah and people who still care finding out. So we'll discuss the Facebook fallout from this, and one Jake Adler, who's also an asking for OU, who's basically defending Jeff Leb on Facebook. Another great example of the kashrus of OU. We will discuss, time permitting, Reverend Ruben Diaz, a staunch fighter for morality, who became a city councilman after years as a state senator and a leading galach in the Bronx, who's led many rallies against Hashchosa, and he's now being attacked on a technicality and the implications of that for Shomer Shabbos politicians. Furthermore, we said last week we'd get to it, and I don't know if we'll get to it this week. Simcha Felder is attacked by Curtis Sliwa. It's about time that we in the Frum community understood that although Curtis Sliwa is a personality, and he has various very, very good aspects, the guardian angel from different things, Lamaisa, he too is an arrogant prostak, and it doesn't behoove our Frum community when he comes there to give him accolades and to chan for him, especially when he's promoting a candidate on the working party against Simcha Felder. We'll touch on that. We'll try to discuss the hashkafa of Tzefania 6, the sixth chapter in Tzefania, and how that's antithetical to the position of Agudas Yisrael. We will give you chapter and verse of how in many cases, almost like the Aseret B'nai Haman, Rabbi Sherer took the wrong position on morality, and I, your humble servant, working under the aegis of Rav Avigdor Miller and other Gedolei Yisrael, took a positive position, and we're going to demonstrate it to you with newspaper clippings and exact results, etc. So that this is not something which is intellectual, but it's l'maisa mamish. Israel is passing a surrogacy bill that women could carry a baby to term for a person who's a barren mother. We're not going to get into the halachic implications of that, but the Mishkevei Zohar are making a huge outcry in Israel because they haven't been included in the surrogacy, so that Mishkav Zohar couples in Atzeinu HaKadosh, where it says Vatoki ha'aretz eschem for Kamaisa eretz Kenani. They're complaining that they didn't get enough coverage, that they could have surrogates carrying the baby to term for them. Danny Dayan, the consul general, as opposed to Danny Danon, the ambassador to the UN. Danny Dayan, the Oisvav who marched in the gay parade, representing one of only two countries, the Chilul Hashem. And maybe Agudas Yisrael could learn from the Torah activism of the late great Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, who for many years was successful due to his activism in stopping Orthodox Jews, the Israel Day Parade, from allowing a gay float and gays to march under their banner because of his position that Orthodox Jews shouldn't march in especially yeshivas and institutions. Maybe Agudas should take some lessons from Rav Aaron Soloveitchik in how to go to the mat for morality. And you got to give credit when credit is due, and we will do so. And we have other things, but let's get started. It's very, very late and everything is very time consuming. We have so much good stuff here, important stuff. And I want to stress that this is all very, very important for the Lakewood Olam. That basically I'm concentrating on the Lakewood Olam because the future of Klal Yisrael lies with the Bnei Torah, and the young Bnei Torah are basically very uneducated about what's going on, and by osmosis, they're breathing in the air of this false concept. Agidus Yisrael named care. Agudah takes care, and if they're doing it, it's zicher correct. And I'm showing you that the idol of Agudah has clay feet. They do many, many good things. But when it comes to morality, it's an idol. It has clay feet. It's done a tremendous amount of damage. Please listen to our programs from last week. And now we're going to give you many more concrete examples, if you will. So Merv Rabbi said we're reading from the authentic Agudah Bible, the biography of Rabbi Sherer by Yonis and Rosenblum. Get out Kindle or get out your Art Scroll book of Rabbi Sherer. Please, let's open it up. And what do we see? On page 298. Page 298. The picture there. Rabbi Sherer with Dr. Seymour Lachman. Once upon a time, there was a senior official of civil rights in the Department of Health and Education had the temerity to start criticizing, demand explanations for why the Jewish yeshivas separate the genders in education. And Rabbi Sherer followed it up with a response to the official in question that he was treading on dangerous ground, a good quote, suddenly find himself involved in a scandal of government interference in religion, which would be very explosive, unquote. And by the way, where does this come from? Aid Memoir, January 17th, 1974. I don't know if Aid Memoir means that Rabbi Sherer himself or somebody for him took notes, etc., etc. Rabbi Sherer cataloged a lot of his accomplishments for posterity. I appreciate his thoroughness, and because of his thoroughness, we now see the negative in the clay feet as well, and we have to acknowledge it. We can't be babies. When the mistake is made, the Tanakh is replete, is full of self-introspection and criticism on the part of the Nevi'im and the Gedolei Yisrael throughout the Doros in the starkest and the strongest, starkest terms. And this concept that we're not allowed to criticize, and we're not allowed to ask questions, we're not allowed to lay under the bed of our Agudas Yisrael and say, Toirahi v'lilmad ani tzarech. This itself is shtusim v'havolim and apikursis, and this kind of shtika, which is a haidah to what our Agudah is doing, that's killing us morally, and that the trickle-down effect is more molestations of kids and more gezeirus against us in the Inyani of Yesod. This has to stop, and it has to be reversed even at this late stage. The point over here in this thing is, you see, Rabbi Sherer knew how to take up the cudgels and how to be stark. How come Agudah wasn't stark with Governor Cuomo when they were making gay rights legislation? The Baal B'shtei Einayim couldn't foresee with the Shtei Einayim of his. If the 13 years of Shemesh from Varakot plan, his closeness with Gedolei Yisrael, he didn't understand what even the common people in Jews for morality, the lay people, the humble servants such as Yehuda Levin following the organization of Rav Avigdor Miller, that we understood the sakana that Cuomo was going to be and that his gezeirus is going to be. So why is it that Rabbi Sherer, instead of standing up and explaining to Cuomo, why is it that Yehuda Levin put together a meeting where we marched into the World Trade Center and the governor's office, and we took it over on Brooklyn Bridge Day, and we demanded to have a meeting with the governor? That was in May or something. And ultimately, we confronted the governor again on Larry King's radio program, the most popular program in the country, the radio program, when he was going on. And we forced him into a meeting where we had 50 or 60 people of all religions and all faiths, and a 2-hour meeting. And Governor Cuomo had to respond, and we held him up from issuing his gay rights executive order. Where was Rabbi Sherer? Where was Agudas Yisrael? Totally absent in action, inexcusable. You know what he was doing? He was busy asking David Schick to have on the side at some point to make a fundraiser to re-elect Cuomo. Of thus, yeah, if the Cuomo made his gezeira of gay rights legislation and pushed it, which ultimately the Kaiser Ksubal Azacha, feared Ein by his son, Andrew, started with Mario's commitment, which he made to the Mishkvei Zacha before he took office, when he was still lieutenant governor. And I confronted him on the streets of Borough Park with a major protest when he came to speak that shut down his speech. And it was reported in the New York newspapers, Cuomo's Day Marn in Brooklyn. Now, Rabbi Sherer, you don't believe, even though you threatened demonstrations by Mayor Beam, you don't believe in demonstrations, okay. But to do nothing? So that's one of the Aseres B'nai Haman. Let's go through a whole list here. When, a year before he was nifter, Rabbi Sherer honored Joe, I never met a homosexual legislation that I didn't like, Lieberman, the vaunted quote-unquote Shomer Shabbos, who OU puts on their Jewish Action magazine in the front of the magazine on the cover, and who writes a book about Shmira Shabbos. So Rabbi Sherer honors Joe Lieberman with a humanitarian or with some sort of an award. I was out there with a handful of people outside the hotel in New York City, giving out the letters for Moshe Feinstein. The letter I keep quoting, I'm holding it up now to the video. I'm holding it up. It's on the Agudas Rabbanim stationery. Here's the Hebrew and the English translation. You can see it's signed by Moshe Feinstein and Rav Hirsch Ginsburg. And I want to read you again what the letter says. I got the letter. Rabbi Sherer didn't get the letter, and it didn't appear in Agudas Yisrael stationery. Very interesting. He says, Hinnu Bezel La'ira B'Negela Habil, the intro one of the gay rights, Shechoiv Kadosh. It's a holy obligation to do everything that he can. City council bill. I'm sorry, I said Lamala. Okay. Wait. Well, the city council, he calls on the politicians, on Upoinim Vidarshan. We turn to them and we demand Lias Mulam to be there in time of the vote and not to vote absent, to vote against the bill. Listen to a stark Lashon. Everyone who listens to me, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Legeshes, to go to the city hall, B'chol Yom, every day of the hearings. You hear, even if it took 3 days. Shall a committee, shall a council, Heichel miyem tes odar boleinu l'toiva, limale el hasa'ulam, to fill the rotunda, u'lekadei shem shemayim. This is what Rav Moshe held. B'haros golei l'chol ha'amim, to show explicitly to all the Gentiles, she'am Hashem soinei kol toyavas Hashem. And it's signed by Moshe Feinstein. Moirei v'Rabosai. Here we go. Moirei v'Rabosai. There's no answer why Agudas Yisrael wasn't the catalyst for this, why Yehuda Levin got this letter by getting Rav Avigdor Miller, the Debretziner Rav, and the Linzer Rav to sign the letter to Rav Moshe. Okay? Clearly against the sherer doctrine, Rabbi Isai. And then he goes and he honors Joe Lieberman, who sponsored nationally homosexual bills. And I got a call in the mid-90s from a person who was a Senator, Danforth. Danforth, I think it was Danforth or a different one from Missouri. They said, we don't understand. Joe Lieberman's an Orthodox Jew. How come he's supporting this immoral legislation? Rabbi, can't you do anything? So yeah, Rabbi Sherer did something. A year before he passed away, almost to the day, Rabbi Sherer passed away on the eve of an Agudah dinner, if you remember. That dinner, what's his name? Vice President Al Gore came down and they wrote for him a nusach to be masbid Rabbi Sherer, who had his levaya on Monday, the next day, a huge levaya, which he deserved every bit of the covet. Again, he's a tremendous chosh of a person that I don't come to him. Just in this issue of morality, this was his own invention. This had nothing to do with Gedolei Yisrael. This was despite Gedolei Yisrael. So he honored Lieberman. So I had a person, Shlomo Winter, a Talmud of Philadelphia, an alumnus, call up Rav Yisrael. Rav Yisrael was very upset. Nobody asked me. Nobody told me. I didn't know. It was wrong. So much for this Babam. I said that when Agudah does something, it was done with a consultation with Gedolim. If you believe that, I could tell you a Brooklyn Bridge, not on Brooklyn Bridge Day. I could tell it to you any day of the year. Excuse me, Rabbi Salchaim Teimul Shalom. I went out there and I confronted Joe Lieberman when he got out of his car. I said, Senator Lieberman, congratulations on receiving the award from Agudas Yisrael, but you're sponsoring abortion on demand and homosexual legislation in the Senate. Years later, he also sponsored homosexuals openly in the military. An Oisvarf Sheba Oisvarf, and we need this Oisvarf's books on Shabbos. You understand? I'm not talking about the fact he flew on Tisha B'Av to Kosovo for some reason, and maybe even once flew on the plane. It was Machal Shabbos or whatever it was, and he ate on the first day of Tisha B'Av, and it was reported in the media. He got maybe a heta from his Rabbi Frundel, Barry Frundel from Keshet Israel, who was in jail afterwards for a scandal. His rabbi, you understand? Joe Lieberman, who told Imus on his radio program that he doesn't say the bracha Shalei Asani Isha. It's cut out of his prayer book. And he doesn't say Mishkevei Isha that we read on Yom Kippur, that's a Tayeva. You understand? This is the Joe Lieberman that Agudas Yisrael honored at a dinner. I went out there and I handed out this letter of Moshe Feinstein. I handed it out to hundreds of people, including Gedolei Yisrael, like my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Chaim Epstein Zitzal, Rav Aaron Shechter, and others. And Moira Rabosai, when I called Shmuel Kamenetsky and I told him this, he said, thank you for telling me I'm not going to shake hands with Joe Lieberman. But this is what Agudas Yisrael did. A while later, the same Shlomo Winter confronted Rabbi Sherer at a shleishim for Rabbi Isby of Agudav Avenue L. And Rabbi Sherer told him, what are you pointing your finger? Don't point your finger at me, which was correct. Shlomo got a little bit too Lebedik. But he said, you already told we made a mistake. Ooh, that doesn't appear in the memoirs. That doesn't appear in the art school book. I think the next printing, maybe Rabbi Nosson Sherman should put that in also. In the interest of honesty, you know, Rabbi Rakefet, the modern Orthodox, he writes things, MS, with warts and all. Maybe we should go to him a little bit for some of the inside stories of Agudah. Let me just explain that there was a Rosh Yeshiva in Tarvadas, a choshev person, and when he was in the hospital before he passed away, he was speaking with his Einikal, and his Einikal said, listen, this Rosh Yeshiva had a shaykhis with 60, I think it was Bedford Avenue, which was the headquarters of Agudah throughout the war and after the war during the time of Mike Tress. And he said that when Mike Tress passed away, this Rosh Yeshiva moved away from Agudas Yisrael because, again, meaning no disrespect for Rabbi Sherer, but the facts have to be said. He said Mike Tress was a totalist, botless, and Rabbi Sherer did things in a different way, but it wasn't always in every way he was mevatel. I'm telling you, it's clear he didn't go to consult Rav Moshe on all these things, and I'm bringing you rayas. Why did Yehuda Levin get the letter and not Rabbi Sherer? If you didn't have enough time, there weren't enough Mayetzis meetings to discuss this, Rabbi Say. Anyhow, now, I told you last week, Rabbi Sherer refused to contact the motto to vote against a lesbian being a sub-cabinet position. This was absolutely wrong. We quoted the chairman of the Conservative Party was much closer to the motto and a much bigger politician, with all due respect, than Rabbi Sherer. And I quoted you last week that Schumer said, Rabbi Sherer never told me I'm so close to him. He never told me that the Orthodox are opposed to abortion. So it comes out, my Rabbi, a fascinating thing. The Jewish press, modern Orthodox, liberal, so-called Jewish press, by publishing the articles they publish every week in the culture wars, almost 20 years or more after Rabbi Sherer was nifta, is far more to the right in 2018 with all of the cascading towards Gemara, so Sodom and Amora, than Rabbi Sherer and Agudas Yisrael in the 1970s and 1980s. Boy Nasa Cheshbon. Rabbi Sherer would never do the things that they do to confront Cuomo in the newspapers the way they do. Look, here's the article from this week's Jewish press. This is why everybody should subscribe to the Jewish press, because they're doing a murder Kiddush Hashem. And the title says, New York increases Medicaid funding for transition surgery. They're giving money for transgenders. And they're insisting that insurance companies pay for contraception, even if it goes against their religion. Is Aguda fighting with Cuomo about this? Are they saying anything? Maybe the Catholics are, because the Catholics are officially against contraception. I'm just trying to say, Rabbi Say, this is what's going on. The Jewish press is to the right of the philosophy 30 years later, 30 years down the road, to the philosophy of Rabbi Mara Sherer that he inculcated the Aguda with, and that's why all the lekkers and shmeckers and the shmek gefelach distinct from them when they send all these sycophantic tweets day and night and these pictures and all the Hanifa and putting a picture of Cuomo on their Aguda calendar, etc., etc. Now, I want you to know the famous story that Rabbi Sherer, towards the end of his life, he was already suffering, and he was invited to deliver an invocation. I think it was by May and Rudy Giuliani. And they knew that Cardinal O'Connor always embraces Rabbi Sherer. He had a great deal of respect for him. Not that I'm in competition with Rabbi Sherer, I'm not. But he was nice enough, Cardinal O'Connor, on different occasions to call me his favorite rabbi. Not that I was in competition. He understood Rabbi Sherer was way above me and much more sophisticated, articulate, aristocratic, older, and had a major Jewish organization. And I was just a little peanut. Nevertheless, I accomplished a lot of Kiddush Hashem with Cardinal O'Connor, which we'll talk about at a different time. But anyhow, they were very afraid that O'Connor was wont, W-O-N-T, to embrace Rabbi Sherer whenever he saw him. And this would be on the TV cameras, and Rabbi Sherer felt it was Chil Hashem. So what did he do? He got a message to O'Connor, please, because Rabbi Sherer is receiving treatments for Yana Machla, he's very schwach and everything. He can't be, he can't breathe on him, he can't cough or sneeze on him. And that way, very, very shrewdly, he finessed that he shouldn't have to get an embrace from O'Connor. But O'Connor loved him and embraced him. When did he go to O'Connor and say, Cardinal, let's fight against the schmutz together? He obviously didn't do it too much. I'll bring you a raya. Let me bring you a raya. I'm holding you up this picture on the internet. You see, there are 3 articles here, and I'll read you the titles. 3 articles. This is from January 22nd, 1984. The newspaper is the Daily News. Army that allies march on Koch. New York Newsday. Salvation Army in dispute with city over edict. Number 3, the Jewish Press. Koch declared Scrooge by pro-life clergy group. That's me. I gave him the Scrooge Award. What happened was, Koch came out with a gezerah that anybody who does business with the city to get city funds has to sign in order to get the city money that they will not discriminate against homosexuals in employment. Just schreckliche thing. P.S. I think Aguda was signing the thing. And if the Salvation Army, evangelical Christians, wouldn't have said, Loibet and Aleph, we're going to give up hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we're not going to sign it and we'll fight you in court, Aguda continued. So when I found out about this on my own, I organized a press conference on January the first of the year in 1984. And Mayor Koch himself came down because he was afraid it would be a busha for him. I announced I'm giving him the Scrooge Award in the Kratzmach season of New Year's, L'Misparam, taking away money from religious organizations who don't want to go along with his pro-Hashkasa agenda. Now, Rabbi Sherer doesn't want to do something that's not Bekavidik. Fine. I got in all the newspapers the headlines. It was playing in a slow news day on INS and CBS, etc., etc. And it showed that we're standing alongside early on. We're standing with the Salvation Army. We're not letting them get all the credit. And where are the Jews? The Jews are going along. I was menaka. I cleaned up from the Chil Hashem that a good was making through their taciturnity, through their shveiking. So my Rabbi say, I gave Koch the Scrooge award, and guess what? He came down. I said, "Oh, Mr. Mayor, you're here to accept your award." And I held up the award in front of him. There's a picture in the Mooney newspaper, the New York City Tribune, of me giving him the award. He says, no, go away. And he made his hashchosa statement and left, but he got blasted. This is what one person could do without secretaries, without an organization, without any money. Rabbi Sherer could have done things in a much more sophisticated way. He could have taken on Koch on this thing. You know, we quickly signed the Catholics, and I signed on behalf of the Igor Rabbanim, amicus brief, friend of the court brief, to support the Salvation Army who catched the court and ultimately won. How good that Bizyonis, they got involved weeks or months later. Of course, you'll read their stories. They'll tell you how they did it, etc., but they won't tell you how and when they did it. Because we have to be the tail that wags the dog. The reason I'm talking to Lakewood is because that's where the future B'nai Torah, the Hashkafistas are, and you've got to be the tail that wags the dog, whether it's against the billboards. Understand the Rosh Yeshivas were quiet when Aaron Kotler made the billboards for whatever his reason. Politically, he should be able to do or whatever it is, or advertise what he wants. And the Olam HaTorah was afraid. They started to write things. All of a sudden, the Rosh Yeshivas came out with a Kol Kairi. You understand that's the way things work. So you see, you have to be the tail that wags the dog. It's got to start from the bottom up. That was the whole message I spoke about in the Vaydavar Torah about Pinchas. Pinchas was from the bottom up. He was a regular person. Karina Jager, Teyu Lavi Pravanka, and then Agudas Yisrael will follow suit. Then the Lakewood Rosh Yeshivas will follow suit. This is the way it has to work, Rabbi Sai. So it's so important. Please spread the word, and the Lakewood Olam HaTorah should listen on the hotline. Those who do listen should watch the videos. Those who do, and spread the word on this very important program. So I've shown you this in show and tell. Rabbi Sai. They honored Lieberman. Let me hold up something else from you. This is a newspaper in Hartford. It's the premier New Register, a premier paper in the capital of, or not the capital, but in maybe it is the capital of Connecticut. Rabbis press Lieberman on abortion vote. Why? Agud is honoring him. I'm going down to Connecticut and pressuring him for his Chilul Hashem. And on top, you see the press statement. Senator Joseph Lieberman targeted for pre-Yom Kippur protest, for supporting partial birth abortion that even lowlifes like Koch and Moynihan said, this is barbaric. We support abortion, but partial birth abortion is barbaric. Where was Agudas Yisrael? They made a token statement. This is the problem, Rabbi Sai. This is the problem. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. By the way, it says that Rabbi Sherer went and testified in front of the State Department of Education on page 302 in his book for when there was a mandatory AIDS curriculum that would have been in the yeshivas. Okay, and the question can no longer be answered in the affirmative. Now being asked the yeshivas whether they were teaching the specific AIDS curriculum of the state. Rabbi Sherer went to lobby. And he brought copies of the Mesilas Yesharim and Orchos Tzadikim, and he argued that teaching of Torah constitutes the best preventive for AIDS. an argument buttressed by the virtual non-existence of the disease in the Orthodox community. And he piled ice, gewaldig. So you think that this is a praise for Rabbi Sherer. It is a praise. But the implications are it's a criticism. As Mevilnor, you have the ability to do, and you didn't do nearly enough. It was very sporadic. It was once in a while. And I'll tell you more about that in part 2. So please stay tuned. And we're going to pause momentarily and then immediately go to part 2 of this week's program.